Hi friends, Claudia here. Today I want to show you how to gold emboss without hot foiling. So these are 5 easy ways I'm going to show you today. And we'll start with the easiest one. We just take a paper of gold cardstock, gold metallic cardstock, which I put into this embossing folder, which is a fun one. It has a nice texture to it. I think it's peacock feathers, and we'll see how that looks. Look at that. I find it's a really efficient and effective way to use that gold foil paper. So I could put it down here as a panel, but I decided to use this die cut here and cut things out. So I'm going to cut out on these leaves 3 times. And then look at that. I think it is matching so much, right, with a folder. So these 3 leaves, I'm going to just arrange them on an A2 white card panel. I just have to see how to arrange them. And then I mounted the card panel on a gold cardstock again, added some gold splatters. Then I added a stamped sentiment, and that is the first card. There you go, easy peasy. Next up, you can see me drying a panel. It's a watercolor paper panel where I added 2 gold tone and metallic sheen. And I'll put it into this nice, close to my heart embossing folder, and let's see what the result will be afterwards. Okay, so look at that. It's also a very nice texture, different from the first one, but look at this. All the nooks and crannies are nicely filled in with the gold shades. And this is the card I made. First I added some cutouts and then a sentiment, a die cut sentiment. Next up, number 3 is a different technique. Now we're going to take some embossing paste, and I'm going to use the one by Altenew, and I will go and spread out a generous layer over a white card panel. And as you can see, I have my gold flakes handy, no matter which ones you take. And I'm going to dab them on both with my fingers and with a specific brush, I'm always using for this technique. It is a little sticky now, of course, because this embossing paste is sticky. And I'm just trying to spread it out evenly on the white panel, put it into this nice monstera leaf embossing folder, and when we run it through the machine, we'll see how that looks. Oh yes, that's wonderful. That's exactly what I wanted to have, and I'm just removing some of the excess hangover from the sides, and look at that. Again, it's a totally different technique, and it has such a nice and wonderful sheen and look. And as you can see, my fingers, there's no residue left on it now after it has run through the embossing folder. It's absolutely beautiful, and let me show you what I did. First, I die cut a few of the leaves and splattered some ink on it, and then I did add some stamped details. I have another stamp set. Here is the sentiment, and here are the 2 white monstera leaves stamped in. Next up is another technique which I want to show you. Again, we're using a white card panel, and this time we're using metallic gold. It's a pigment ink by scrapbook.com, and as you can see, I'm using the ink swiping technique to get as much coverage on this white panel as I can. It's not very dark, the gold. Maybe it's because of the shade, I don't know, but I'm spreading it on, putting it in this Cuttlebug design embossing folder. And look at that. Wonderful. Because of the texture, you can see these little flowers, but you will also notice that it's much lighter. The gold shade is much lighter than we had before. I find it's very subtle and very nice. And on the card, I used it by rounding off the corners here from the panels, die cutting some flowers, staggering them, and adding a huge sentiment. And that's the card. Next up, I'm using again embossing paste like I did before, but this time it's going to be different. As you will see, I am now adding gold foil. This is the one you can use for hot foiling, but there's also another one, I think, and this is by We Are Memory Keepers. So I'm just smoothing it out here with the scraper. And as I said, you don't need a hot foiling system or a whole machine if you don't want to. So I'm putting this in this beautiful folder again. And after a while, I'm opening it, and after having embossed it, it comes out like this. Peel it off. Okay, so now the coverage is not as dense as I wanted it. There are two areas where you will see it's not as I want it. So no problem, I'll just put it again on the residue, the sheet we just used. So we're not wasting anything, not throwing anything out. And I'm just cutting them into shape, see where there is enough gold color left on the sheet. And because it's still a little sticky, I can cut it off according to the measurements and run it through the folder again, through the embossing machine. Let me show you then how it looks after the second run. I'm now peeling it off again, and as you can see, we got the coverage basically that we wanted, that we were missing in the first run. Not a problem, and that's how it looks. I find the texture is great, the sheen is nice, and it looks a little antique. Now I took this and mounted it on a card and added a huge sentiment, a few enamel dots, and that's it. And now here again we have the collection of the 5 cards we made today, all with 5 different embossing techniques, 5 different materials. We had gold cardstock, we have ink, pigment ink, we had gold flakes. We also used gold, metallic, watercolor in 2 different shades, as you can see here. And last but not least, we also used a nice gold foil, as you will see here, which came out nicely. And this concludes our embossing session today. I hope you enjoyed it and I could inspire you to learn or try something new. Don't forget to follow for more inspiration. Bye for now.